Hey, everybody. This is the intro you don't want to miss. Stick with us as we count down to going live with Joseph from JoJaqs. You don't want to miss this countdown.
Now, as a woodworker or any sort of maker, you wouldn't go out and start working on a project and start making cuts into wood before you've drawn out the thing you're going to build on a piece of paper. And once you've drawn it out, put measurements down, you wouldn't start cutting wood until you've made a cut list. One mistake that beginners make when getting started in video production is they shoot everything. They'll have 20 different shots of a 10-second clip from all sorts of different angles. That is unnecessary. Take your viewer's avatar, what we talked about, what is your typical viewer, and define what it is they're trying to get out of that specific video. Is it to be entertained? Is it to learn something new? And what is their understood or inherent knowledge? If they're woodworkers, they don't need to see the video of you pulling wood or metal off of a shelf. They've done it before and they know how a miter cut works. So let's make a plan and let's talk about the 4 steps to making a plan. The first piece in this 4-step process to me is the most important. It's the outline. It's 7th grade English, basic knowledge. Well, not basic, but it's kind of involved. You're going to take all of your information from your brainstorming session that's all out of order and incoherent, and you're going to put it into a flow of how to get from point A to point V. Let's take a look at this in action. Each line in it is a thought, and each thought should have motivation on getting to the next thought or the next line in your outline. Now, you don't have to have everything in your first run through on the outline. You just want to get the basic information of your brainstorming and everything out of your head onto a piece of paper and put it into sections like the intro, point A, point B, etc., going down the line. And when you create these letters and numbers, they will actually be used in the next section, which is a little scary for some folks, storyboarding. Now, if you want to practice this before we move on to storyboarding, let me give you an exercise. If you've never heard of it, Google the peanut butter jelly experiment or the peanut butter and jelly lesson. Imagine you had an alien or somebody who didn't know what a peanut butter and jelly sandwich was, and you have to explain to them what it takes to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How much information does your viewer avatar already have? That's the information you put into your outline. Now, once you have your outline established, you move on to the storyboard. Now, I know a lot of people are scared of storyboards because you're not an artist. Don't worry about it. I use stick figures. I'll use pictures from my phone. I'll use pictures from old videos. You can even use storyboardthat.com and use their clip art. You're going to take the letters and numbers that were from the outline, and maybe you've made some adjustments, maybe you've rewritten your outline again at this point, and you don't have to make a cell for every single piece of the outline, but you can group them together to make sure that you have the visuals in place so that whenever it's time to shoot, you can keep your creativity focused on your actual maker project and not where the camera goes and what the shot needs to look like. That'll be defined on the storyboard. Also part of this pre-production elements, the third item is the script, taking some of the items from the storyboard, because the storyboard, we've added a little bit of dialogue into it. There's 2 main styles of scripts. You have ENG news style 2-column video on one side, audio on the left, which is normally your voiceover or sound effects. The other is film style, where it's more of voiceover words and then you have visual cues in between. You don't have to write your script word for word, because if you're like me and you improv, you can write just your opening sentence, your opening line that you might have worked on, and the rest of it make it bullet points and then write out whatever your closing line will be. This right here gets you ready for your shot list. Now, before I get to the next piece, which is the most important tool in helping you save time in production and in editing, let me ask you to hit the like button. This is brand new. These are the first videos of this channel, and I really want to hit the ground running. Hit that like button and let me know that you want to see more content like this. The shot list is the most important piece past the outline. It is where you organize exactly what shots in what locations. This, if you are a woodworker, is like your cut list. If you're an engineer, this is like your bill of materials. This is everything that you need to cover to do your video and nothing else. There's no superfluous shots provided on the shot list. The best practice is not necessarily to write the shot list in order, but organize it by location, or maybe location and shot. This allows you to shoot completely out of order as long as your project allows for that to happen. You can get all of your cut shots in one. You can get all of your glue up shots done in one. What's great about this is you have the file name, or maybe you don't have the file name, but you're filling this out so it essentially becomes an assembly list in editing. And it makes editing a breeze. You don't have to watch through 3 different takes and 3 different intros, because on your shot list you marked only do take 3, and you don't have to watch takes 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. Now, I've made a temporary template for you to download on JoJaqs.com, but after working on the shot list for this, I realized a lot of things are out of. 3-point lighting does not mean 3 bulbs, but rather sources from 3 directions. The first of these 3 is your key light. It could be the sun, a studio light, a window, anything that is your main light at 100% of the light needed. Let's fill in this shadow, but not erase it, by adding a fill light around 70 to 80% of the key's power based on the distance from the subject. Now, if your added light erases the shadow, you simply have 2 key lights, not a key and a fill. The third point is the backlight, whose purpose is to give definition, maybe like a 3rd dimension look to the subject. Let me make this a little easier, and I'm going to turn the backlight red so it stands out better. See, that line right there on the edge is what gives your subject definition. In a workshop, you won't use 3-point lighting, or will you? Overhead strip lights are actually your key light in full flood mode. Their reflections are acting as a low quality fill backlight, but you're still missing a real fill light, and that's where the raccoon eyes come from these overhead shop lights. These shadows you see right below your eyebrows are made worse the higher your ceiling is from you. This animation is simulated at 8 feet, and if we move up, this is 11 feet. To fix this, all you have to do is add a small underlight, and you don't have to shine it directly on and go full Morticia Adams. You just need a little bit to ease the shadows. And all right, I know this is just a simulation, and in a moment I'm going to take you out to the shop so you can see this in real life. But before we go out to the shop, I need to cover a few more specs. When lighting your workshop, the color temp of your lights is not the only thing to think of. Lumens, lux, and CRI are just as important. Lumen is the measure of total light from the source in all directions. Lux is the measure of the light on a surface. For professional lighting, this is usually 1 meter square area lit from 1 meter away. An old school 60-watt bulb might have 500 lumens. This studio light that I'm using is 4,600 lumens, but it's 4,100 lux at 1 meter. CRI, or color rendering index, is the effect light has on the true color representation of the material or subject. Let's simulate this with 2 lights and 2 pieces of paper. As you see, if I shine a white light, you have a white piece of paper and a red piece of paper. If I shine only the red light, you see we have 2 red pieces of paper. The closer the CRI number is to 100, the more true the color is. Now, I shoot in a 5,000 to 5,600K setup in my shop or in here with a CRI of 94 to 96. But in my workshop, I keep 3,500 degree color temp lights because it's a lot more pleasing and enjoyable for me during day-to-day action. And speaking of the shop, I think it's time to go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're trying to make Monday nights great, and I'm glad you can join us. We have a fantastic guest. We're going to talk about pre-production and how a little bit more effort on pre-production of your videos can save you lots of time in post-production. And we're going to be teasing some things for another time. But for now, I want to remind you the chat is where it's at. And that intro video was a sampling of some of the content that Joseph has to offer on his channel. So after you watch this live stream, go check him out over at JoJaqs on YouTube. Go check out JoJaqs.com. Speaking of JoJaqs.com, he has JoJaqs.com, and there you can find some interesting things to help you. He is an expert with a background in education in broadcasting. He knows video backward and forward. Find him at JoJaqs on YouTube. He has worked on such things that you have probably seen if you've watched, like on Netflix, the CNN, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim type items. I met him at WorkbenchCon, and he really impressed me with his knowledge and a realistic view on how we can apply it to what we do. Please help me welcome Joseph Mullins.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Hey, Joseph, I appreciate you coming on. I thank you so much. I know I didn't give your background credit with that intro, but trust me, folks, it goes much more in depth than that. And Joseph is a real expert. Like I said, you got to see a sampling of what he has to offer on his channel. And he also does some one-on-one consulting, giving you some advice. How does that work, Joseph?
So what I started doing, it actually came from WorkbenchCon. I was sitting with, who was it? Well, I won't do name drops. Robert De Niro told me at a party one time should quit dropping, and Will Sasso agreed with him, and any names that come up as quick as I can right now. But so at WorkbenchCon, I was in a session, and the wheels had already been turning because after my video boot camp, the very first day, I didn't stop talking from 11 o'clock that morning until 2 o'clock the next morning. There was really a need for critique, for content creation. Like, people don't just want to hit record and get out there. Folks really want to do good work. They just weren't sure how to do it. And so I sat, it was in Lincoln Street in John's class, just sitting there listening to folks. And he had brought up that he has folks that will QC stuff for him. And other folks were asking, how do I get that? And I've been doing that for years for YouTubers, where they'll send me some clips and then I review it. So sitting there in that class, I came up with a package where you pick 2 to 3 videos, and in an hour, including playing time of those videos, I sit down with you and critique your content, the production value, and give you the tips and tricks on how to make it better with your existing tools. Now, just like in woodworking, there's better tools than others, or better. We've all done the Harbor Freight deals, and we know what it's like to go to something a little more powerful, or a little cleaner, or a duty cycle, etc. It's the same thing in your editing, but just buying that software isn't what makes the difference. You've got to learn to use that tool, just like you've got to learn to use your high-end Powermatic woodworking tools, or Festool for Sedge out there.
Yeah, so I'm basically, with my editing software, it's like trying to make everything with a circular saw and comparing that to other people's saw stops. So I get the analogy there. You definitely saw a need at WorkbenchCon because it was clear to you that there are woodworkers trying to teach each other how to edit videos, and that's probably not the best source of knowledge.
Well, it hit me because, I went to WorkbenchCon back in 2020, and I did a volunteer pass because, as we know, it's a super expensive ticket. And um, I was trying to decide if I wanted to do making as my career. I build furniture. I'm a welder and a woodworker and a 3D printer and a whole bunch of things. And I was um, trying to make a go at it, like many people on this channel and many people who are your audience. We're trying to be woodworkers full time. And so went to WorkbenchCon to figure out how to do it. And I loved, Ann of All Trades had a beautiful class about, mailbox money and revenue around it. And then John Katz Moses had one. And I also went to the video classes, and I learned a lot of really cool stuff from Jason Bent, from Bent's Woodworking. And but during the Q&A session, I started to notice a trend that I've seen perpetuating over and over in these last 2 years of getting involved in YouTube woodworking, where people echo something they heard at some point, thinking that it's real or the law or truth. And I realized that they were perpetuating inaccurate ideas and methods. And I'm just shaking my head like, no, guys, don't do that. Don't put that copyrighted content in there. Don't shoot everything and just fix it in post. Don't just do it. And so at the end of that session, as as a volunteer, we're packing everything up. I let Krista know that, hey, I actually teach video production in community college. There's 2 of them here in North Carolina that I teach an 18-hour course in the Small Business Center to help small businesses get started on YouTube. And it's a soup to nuts, from pre-production through file management, After Effects and everything. And she said, she asked me if I could trim it down to 2 hours for the Haven conference. And I said, absolutely. I want people to not do things the hard way. And so as we were prepping for this WorkbenchCon, all the way to the morning before, we're at breakfast, and I was shaking. And there was a woodworker that I had met at a craft show whenever I was trying to sell cutting boards, didn't sell a single one. And he blew me out of the water, by selling things, but he was a fan of so many of our people in this. And he hit me with some truth. He said, understand that these people are all woodworkers trying to do video. You are a video guy trying to do woodworking. And he brought up when I split a slab in half because I had my tenon going the wrong way. And, all the problems I had are the same problems that woodworkers are having with video. So why don't I go into it with that mindset that if I was able to ask questions through my woodworking journey to say, how do I do a mortise and tenon, et cetera, if I had a good foundation, then I would have been in a different realm. And so once that hit, I went downstairs and started that session at 11 o'clock, and it was standing room only. The first person to leave was 90 minutes into it. And I've gotten so much, so many videos and things sent to me from people in that class, people I've connected with, that it resonated with them. And rewind back to that WorkbenchCon, I was just doing the class to pay for my ticket, but then I saw this need. And so, my best friend is this business guy, and he said, do it. He's one that told me to get JoJaqs going years ago. So the long-winded response is, I saw that woodworkers were teaching each other things, I wanted to come in and give some secrets on how to do it much more efficiently. And that's where the 30X came from. The whole reason we're talking here tonight is post-production. As a rule of thumb, post-production takes 6 times recorded footage length, not shoot time, but recorded footage length. So if you record a 5-minute clip, it's going to take you a minimum of 30 minutes to edit that 5-minute clip, even if you only edit down into 30 seconds, because you have to watch it, then you make some notes, and then you watch it again, you make some cuts, and you watch it again. And then when it fits into the timeline, by rule, you're going to see that same clip roughly 6 times. So if you are shooting GoPro lock shots for an hour, at a minimum, that's going to take you 6 hours to edit, even if you're only turning that into a 5-minute clip. That's one piece of it. The other was pre-production. I learned that if I planned my shoots properly, like a woodworker plans their boxes and whatever projects properly, it actually cut down on my shooting time, because I was only shooting the exact content that I needed. And so that's where the 30 rule came, because 1 minute of pre-production saves my 5 minutes of production. Every 1 minute of production costs 6 minutes of post-production.
Yeah. So what I'm really hearing here is more effort up front will save you in post-production. What I hear from those online who are trying to start out with video, they're trying to get going. They either just started a YouTube channel, and that just is relative. It could be 6 months ago, it could be a year and a half, or they're looking at it, and their questions are usually, what editing software should I get? What camera should I get? And part of what I'm hearing is, no matter what level of software or camera you get, there are still basic steps that could be taken in your pre-production that are going to save you in editing time throughout. Is that correct?
100%. So, and when you and I have talked before, the wheels turn. It is so many parallels between woodworking and video production. I can go and spend a lot of money on software and those sort of things, and they're helpful, and they might mitigate some time. But if you, as a woodworker, decided to go and make a box, all right, so you've got a box that you want to make. None of you all would go into your shop, grab random wood off of your shelf, start making cuts, and glue it together. I guarantee each and every one of you have drawn a picture of that box, and most of you would have made a cut list to know exactly how many pieces of wood at what length you need. That first thing I just said is called a storyboard, and that second thing is called a shot list. If you go into your wood shop and just start cutting and gluing, you're going to waste all your wood. You're going to waste your time, waste your glue. Just like if you go in there with a camera, you're going to waste your time, you're going to waste your time, and you're going to waste your time.
Yeah. So let's step back to something else you said. You mentioned while at WorkbenchCon, the subject of copyright material comes in. And I know for beginners and some more experienced people, they see others including small snips of copyrighted material, and they think that's okay. What's wrong with 3 seconds of The Office TV show, or of the movie Die Hard? What's wrong with 5 seconds of Die Hard?
So this is a big one for me, because I got burned in college. My video production professor, I won't go into the full story, but it was such a devastating moment that I took copyright very seriously. So before I go into my response, think about when you're driving down the interstate. All right, that speed limit is 55 miles an hour. But depending on what state you're in, you could go, in Atlanta, 14 over was somewhat acceptable. In North Carolina, a trooper told me one time, 9 you're fine, 10 you're mine, that 10 over. So going above the speed limit is illegal, and it's how much you could get away with before you're caught. As I listen to people talk, people have said this 3-second rule, 7-second rule, etc. I have a camera up here, a big Sony camcorder that I'll give to someone in the chat or who gets in contact with me. If they can provide me with precedent, legislative, whatever legal document that says 7 seconds is there, because if you cannot use a copyrighted photo, if you cannot use a picture that is copyrighted in your video, then you can't use even a second of video, because video is 30 frames a second. That's 30 pictures in a second. So you have 30 individual copyrighted photos every second that you're putting into the production. And most say, well, YouTube hasn't flagged me on it, or I haven't gotten this. Well, that's fine. That's just like the cops not sitting there on the side of the road. But the moment that they do, you can get hit for it. And I believe that you can get away with a lot right now because YouTube is the police. But what happens when copyright infringement cases go from a $32,000 infringement to a $30 infringement for each? And then you lose all of your content that you've uploaded because YouTube just in a second changes the rule based on an update to, DMCA law from the 90s. So you can get away with it, just like you can get away with speeding, but at some point, something happens. And do you want to get hit when that happens?
Yeah, I agree. I can't fault your logic there. I've heard people throw out these number of second guidelines and everything. In the video that played from your channel, that everybody needs to go see, but in the video that played coming into the live stream, you mentioned avatars. Now, avatars is becoming a more common term because it's being used by channel makers, film booth, vidIQ, but can you explain what an avatar is and how should we qualify or quantify our avatars?
I love the avatar because it helps you with your niche. And yesterday I went to pick up some Baltic birch from a guy who is trying to start a YouTube channel. And I was explaining this avatar principle to him, that you need to have someone to talk to. You need to have someone to aim at, to know how high or low to set your bar. So your avatar is who you want as your viewer. When I launched JoJaqs at the end of February of this year, my avatar were everybody that I see here in the chat, from, Suman to Mackenzie, etc. Some have a great understanding, like Suman. I love seeing how he lights. He understands 24 frames, etc. But there is an inherent knowledge with your viewer. Understand that if you are doing how-to videos, your viewer knows what a wood rack is. They know what a miter saw is. They know what a cut is. So you don't have to have every single cut of the miter. You don't have to record wood coming off of the shelf. You only need to shoot as material changes shape of what is needed to convey the topic. So your avatar is the person that you're going to talk to when you look into the camera lens, because that camera lens is an eyeball that doesn't respond to you. You have to have someone in your mind. For me, it was who was it? It was just a bearded flannel person. And it was just an amalgamation of everything from WorkbenchCon. I haven't had a specific, but that's who I speak to, and that's who I encourage. This woodworker who wants to do something else. They want to get their creativity out there, and they want to teach people, or, that's my avatar. Many of you all, if your channel is for kids, then you have kids as your avatar, and you need to speak to them. Or maybe your avatar is a mid-level woodworker where you don't even have to talk about pocket holes because you're only doing hand-cut joinery. So you set your avatar as the people you want to target. Now, your avatar can change. My avatar's changed, and I'm on the 3rd video in the series, and it's changed a little bit after meeting people through Instagram and in person. But you need to have an idea of the person that you are targeted after, and then tell their story. Like, before you've even hit record, give them a backstory. They live in the South. They live in Denver, Colorado. And, they've got one kid who sometimes comes out to the shop, and this person really wants to make a rocking horse for them. Like, give them a personality, and then have just a repository of 6 avatars that you can talk to and be personal with. And I promise, even when you're doing your voiceovers, if you think about them and smile, you can hear yourself smile in those voiceovers as you talk to your avatar, that person who is with you in the shop when nobody else is around. So that's your avatar.
Yeah. We used to do something similar when I used to work for a bank, and we did something similar whenever we were writing procedures.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't call it an avatar at that point, but we defined our target audience, and we gave them skill sets. So you needed to be able to, if you needed a person to be hired from a temp agency, for instance, and they come in and sit down at a desk and follow your procedures,
Mm-hmm.
and their knowledge base and skill set included being able to press the power button on the computer, be able to read, be able to type, but they know nothing about your software.
Yep.
They know nothing about your policies. You need to give them everything in that procedure so that they could come in, look at the procedure, and do the job. If
And
you overestimate their skill set, you're setting them up for failure. If you if you hand those procedures to someone who has a greater skill set, who's already ahead of the game, they're more likely to get bored of following the procedures and not follow them line per line, and more likely to put you in jeopardy. So finding people's skill sets and their attributes will help them along the way as well. You want to set up your viewer for success, whether it be woodworking, metalwork, no matter what the case is, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Your viewer, and there is a gamut. Sometimes you're talking to that lowest common denominator that you need to explain certain things. And with what I'm doing, we'll talk about it here a little later in the episode of the initiative I've set forward. These first boot camp videos that I'm putting out are more on the lower end, lowest common denominator. And that lowest common denominator is still, the expectation of them is that they know how to get into the menu of their camera. They want to get technical, like I'm shooting a microphone video and I talk about cardioid pickup patterns and those sort of things. I'm not going to explain what a microphone is and what the importance of it is. I might do that in the future to, have a unbelievably low bar to get in. But just like you said, if I go too low, I'm going to lose folks. If I go too high, I'm going to lose folks. And I need to bounce around in that middle as much as possible. Same thing with, our audience here, their viewers.
Yeah, I think of Steve Ramsey, who targets the beginning woodworker, those just getting started. I've seen Matt from 731. His audience originally was really geared towards people who wanted to start making projects to sell, and yet his viewer span, his swag of viewers has changed over time, and as he has evolved, his viewers have evolved as well. For me, over at Married Man Woodworking, I want to make cool stuff with inexpensive tools.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sitting out there with a $3,000 saw stop. I've got a $300 table saw. So knowing your audience, even on the cost that that they're going to put in tools, it's hard to build. If you're using Festool and it's hard to target somebody that's going to buy everything from Harbor Freight.
I agree with that too. So how I'm attacking my channel in the beginning is tool agnostic, and I don't know what's going to happen with it. I will go in. So person, a previous guest that you had, I was doing a consultation with them, and they were trying to get to that next upper echelon, and we sat for an hour with new software, and I gave them just enough information to be dangerous, just like your first time getting a planer and watching that thing suck a board in and shoot all this stuff out. It's kind of daunting at first. And so as I was writing notes after working with them, I realized that I've got to cover not just my favorite Adobe suite. I'm going to go into DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, Elements, iMovie, and then all the way the other way into After Effects. I'm going to do Cinema 4D lessons, etc. So I think that defining your avatar in the beginning is a great to have the lanes up at a bowling alley and make sure that you haven't hit the gutter yet. But it's okay to answer Mackenzie's question, which one do you focus on? Well, focus on one first and then cover the other ones. Focus on low-hanging fruit first that might have the biggest impact, and then go. I'd love to get into Premiere Pro and After Effects with you all, but I know most of you aren't spending whatever it costs, $60, $70 a month on it. You're doing DaVinci Resolve for free or Sony Vegas or one of those things. So whenever I get into that, I've got to aim towards that avatar, and then my other avatars in my little arsenal will come out later.
Yeah. Sandy from Mackenzie Lumber Mill is also our moderator. So thank you, Sandy. And she did put your the link out there for JoJaqs.
I appreciate it. If I'm going to do that shameless plug, if you guys would just hit that, you don't even have to hit the alert, hit the subscribe. I put up maybe a video a month. I don't spam, but I get fueled from people watching and things like that. So I'm going to put in that plug. Go on, subscribe. I don't upload as often as a lot do, and everything I upload, I want to make sure it is worth your time, because money is time, time is money. We've got other things to do. I want to make sure every second of content I upload is something to enrich your life, no matter what level you're on.
Yeah, if you enjoyed the countdown tonight, I strongly encourage everyone who is interested in improving their video quality to go over to JoJaqs and watch a video and subscribe. That way it stays subscribed. And I can tell you from my multiple conversations with Joseph that his goal of having a channel is not all about money, and it's not all about showing off. It is about helping others progress. And I truly have felt that he is genuine in that. So please go check out his channel, subscribe, give him that fuel to keep making these great videos. And
I'll even add on to that. I'm not turning monetization on. I haven't turned it on, and I'm not going to turn monetization on. So if you guys enjoy watching videos without ads, at least until I hit that, what is it, 500,000 view or 50,000 subscribers, maybe at that point. But at that point, most all the videos will be on JoJaqs.com without commercials, and YouTube is just going to be the loss. But I hate ads on YouTube. I found a wonderful maker the other day, and I'm just digging their channel, and I'm out in the shop, and every 90 seconds there was an unskippable ad. And I said, sorry, bud, like that's too selfish for me. Like, so you're not going to have to see ads. And I promise I'm going to give you something that's worth your 5 to 10 minutes of time. And then an hour, whenever we go into that consulting thing I'm talking about, that's going to be a live stream on JoJaqs later in the summer. all the people here, followers on there, I'm just going to do live consultations. The private ones are paid, but if you want to be on the channel and have me critique your stuff in the live stream, you're just going to be paying with content of sitting there with me reaming your videos in a public forum.
So, Joseph, we talked about the avatar, and I wanted to get into talking about doing an outline for a video. So, you went through in the video before this the 4 steps that you need to take. So you've defined your avatar. You've decided on a project, which I'll let you speak to that, because you said you need to go ahead and pick out multiple projects, maybe 20, 24 projects, and then narrow it down. Once you get down to one where you're going to start with an outline. What should my outline cover? Because my outlines in the past have been basically bullet points.
Yeah. So I actually left out a step in that video. So technically that pre-production video is episode 2, even though it's the very first video that was uploaded, because I'm going to do a brainstorming video later and go through, it was a Google article like 10, 12 years ago, the 8 steps to brainstorming. And I want to attack those for woodworkers, but I want to make sure to give that video its due process, because brainstorming is huge. So I'm going to talk this next part, assuming that everyone has brainstormed a video. And quickly I'll go over saying, to brainstorm a video, you have your avatar and you say, okay, what do I want to cover? Don't worry about in what order. You can start at the end, start in the middle, start at the end. You just need to, let's see if I have one to show you. You literally I know you won't be able to see this because of the camera, but I write everything down that I could possibly want to cover. And then once I write down everything I want to cover, I go and make little notes of, all right, this needs to be a roll. Like I need to cover this while I'm looking at the camera. Something needs to be 3D, whatever. And once I have taken this brainstorm, I save that brainstorm, and then later I turn that brainstorm into the outline. So everything that was labeled on the other one as first, you have your open, that you tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them what you told them. So, hey, makers, today's what we're going to cover. All right, here's everything we're covering. Boom, 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 boom. And I love these notebooks. I'll see if I can put a link into it. These are called focus notes. I have different versions of them. But now I'm going through my outline of the video. Now, this is not final. This is outline version 1. I think I ended up with version 3 by the time I was done. But these are maybe a line of dialogue, but it's all the ideas. And I'm putting them in order of, foundational information. Like, you've got to know this before you know this next thing. And all we're doing with the outline is section 1A, intro. If there's a second part to the intro, that's B. Now we get into the meat of it. 2A is 3-point lighting, and 2A1, here's all the stats about 3-point lighting. 2A2, then 2B1 was shop 3-point lighting, and blah, blah, blah. And so every video, you take your brainstorm of all the things you want to cover in that brainstorm, everything that you had an idea of what to cover, and you just organize it in a flow of how to get from point A to point V, audio, video, A to V. Hold on. There's another piece to that. The peanut butter jelly exercise. I talk about that in the video. If you've never done the peanut butter jelly experiment, Google it. That helps you figure out how to get from A to V, and then you edit those items out. So your outline is tell them what you're going to tell them all the meat of it, and then in the end, wrap it up, ask them to like, and tell what the very next video in the series is coming. And that's how you make your outline.
Yeah, the peanut butter and jelly experiment is great. again, in my previous life, working at the bank, we used to talk about the alien experience instead of
Yeah.
PB&J. And if an alien landed and you were trying to tell them something simple, like if they took on the form of a human and they were on the floor, how would you tell them to get up, assuming they're an alien and they don't know what knees are, they don't know what it means to sit up,
That's a good
what,
one.
and so you have to know their knowledge base before you can give them proper instructions.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, if you take a adult human and put them on the floor and you tell them, okay, get up on one knee, now use your other leg to
Mm-hmm.
keep yourself vertical and raise yourself to a standing position, they understand all those words and they can execute it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have someone who is not that, they don't have that skill set, that knowledge base, then you have to change the way you give instructions. But it plays along with the same thing you were talking about with the PB&J. Can you give our viewers a little bit a better example, or talk them through how the PB&J experiment works?
Yeah, so the PB&J, the original one, was the same thing as an alien. So in your mind right now, think about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you're talking to someone who's never seen a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, now think about it if they've never seen peanut butter and jelly jars or bread, etc. You can't just say, take a knife, insert it into the jar, because first step would be maybe to gather your resources, to open the jar. You can't just say, stick a knife into the jar. You have to say, rotate the lid counterclockwise 720 degrees, remove the lid, insert knife, scoop 3 ounces. If you don't know what ounces are, scoop a knife load of peanut butter, then spread in a sweeping motion. The idea of the experiment is you can never go detailed enough, because usually it's a high school physics teacher, somebody doing this, and they will bring the peanut butter and jelly out there. And as detailed as you think you're getting, usually you've left something out. That is the whole purpose of the exercise, is to see what steps are missing in the outline or the pre-production stage, so that when you go to shoot your box assembly, and the analogies I'm going to use tonight for everything woodworking is going to be building a box, even though I know we build all sorts of things. But when you go to build your box, you know that you need to gather supplies, measure the wood, cut the wood, assemble, by making the outline, you put everything in there and then mark off the things your avatar already understands.
Yeah,
Hopefully I hit all that right there.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent exercise, and I think that as you think about that, it's just an exercise, but you can apply those same principles to every video that you make. How am I going to describe this to someone who may not know how a planer works? If that's my target audience, somebody who's new to the planer, how am I going to explain a planer to somebody that's new? And I need to do it in a way that's understandable at their level.
Yeah, and I definitely think we've hammered that in. I'll even force it into the next stop of, what does it look like? That's, what does the visual side, and I know we didn't really talk about that before. I just saw the time and I want to make sure we hit the next pieces of it. So when you have your outline, your storyboard is the visuals of your outline, because you're going to take your outline and it's sections, 2A, 3B, whatever. Now, you don't have to do a cell for every single line on there. It's just when you need to change the shot or need to change locations, or if it's something different. But if you're going to shoot sections 2A through 2D are the same camera in the same area, maybe, then that can be a single cell in the storyboard. The storyboard's purpose is to make sure that the visual that is inside your head can match realistic world abilities. So the storyboard is just making visuals, and you don't have to be an artist. I'm horrible. I draw stick figures. Sometimes I'll take a photo with my phone from an angle or a certain thing, or maybe take a cell from somebody else's video because I'm not airing it, so it's not technically copyrighted. I'm using it for educational purposes. Maybe is that fair use? I digress. But the storyboard is taking your outline, laying it out for the cells you need to have a visual representation of. And then past that is you can go ahead and work on your script, because when you do your storyboard, you're going to start adding lines of dialogue to make sure that the cut is long enough for the words coming out of your mouth. And once you have your outline turned into a storyboard, the storyboard cells are now on the script. Then that script and storyboard together become your shot list or your cut list for the box.
Yeah. So, like you say, this is what I want to understand is the storyboard, like we've seen in movies where they put up different clips and they have them in a row. But is it my understanding correct that you can make a clip or I don't know the proper terminology for the storyboard, but you might actually rearrange the order of those later?
So if you storyboarded first, and this is open to interpretation, because when you turn it into the storyboard, you might find that you needed something before the other, or it was easier to shoot. There is no hard and fast rule, because you're not going to shoot in order per se. Now, we're different as woodworkers because we have to shoot in order, because you have to cut the wood before you glue it. But I'll tell you a master trick: don't shoot your first 2 pieces of wood cut. If you are building a box with 4 sides, only shoot the 4th side. And then if you're doing a glue up, only shoot the 4th glue up. Because how many times, pretty much every time, you are going to change your design, something's going to change when you get into shooting, or into shooting and gluing, to where you have figured something out by the 4th cut and the 4th glue up. So your storyboard can be in any sort of order you want. You can change the letters around as you're going, because your shot list isn't going to necessarily be in order. You might shoot the intro at the end after you're completely done, or you might shoot the middle, or whatever. There is no hard and fast rule that they have to be done. And that's why on the storyboard template on JoJaqs, obviously they're not movable. You're just going to draw it out, put some information. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but there's actually faint text here to tell you what to put into what section. So you don't have to have your storyboard in order to go and shoot it, as long as when you get into editing, everything is in order. Otherwise, it might be something fun.
We've talked about scripts before on here, but for some people who are good at ad-libbing, your script may just be like bullet points, or do you encourage like notating every word that you're going to say?
It all depends on your personality. My first 2 versions of the script will be every word, because I need to say them out loud in that first recording to realize how dumb they sound. And then the 3rd version of the script is usually the one everyone sees. I wish I could show you all the first recordings of a script, because it is so incoherent. It is so bad. But the 3rd iteration, I end up making bullet points of words that I need to say. So it's just like public speaking. But sometimes I have a perfect sentence put out, and I will put that into the script. And yes, I use a teleprompter. They are cheap. I have a little foot control that is in the shop below my desk. That's Bluetooth to an iPad, to an old tablet. And you forget 100% of the things you don't write down, just like you're going to forget 100% of the script you don't see in front of your face, even if it's just bullet points.
Yeah. So you've got your storyboards, you've got your script, and you build your shot list, and you take all that with you before you video the first item?
I will say I do all of that before I record the first usable item. Sometimes I will do, like, if I don't know if a video is going to turn out, if it looks one way in my head and I'm afraid of what it's going to look like in real life, I will go and shoot. And there's a film school term for this. It's like scouting, that I will go and shoot a test clip. And that's where a lot of really good ideas die, is during that first shoot. It's very different for woodworkers because we've got to go build that box and I can't just randomly cut wood. Or maybe I can, just like people who sew use muslin, real cheap fabric to practice on. I guarantee we all have cheap wood that we can practice on if we're trying to get a specific type of shot or a look or a time lapse. So to answer your question, I will not shoot real A-roll content or even B-roll content until I have made a certain type of script that incorporates the shot list with it. Now, that is me talking out of both sides of my mouth, because when I do go and shoot without getting organized, that's when I end up with gigs and gigs of 4K, 30 frame video that is just completely unusable. I had 12 takes of the microphone, the audio video that I just shot yesterday, 12 takes because I didn't plan properly enough ahead of time.
Yeah. So let's look at this next question and tease what's coming up next week and ask for our viewers to give us some information. So Sandy from McKenzie Lumber Mill said, just hired a new editor. Can you give me some tips to provide her with A-roll, voiceover, and B-roll? Here's the tease. Let's save this question with any others that you have for next week, and let's talk about post-production.
Mm-hmm.
After you've done these steps we talk about tonight, Joseph's agreed to come back with us and talk about what to do afterward. So if you have any questions related to editing, maintaining the video files, keeping things organized, anything like that, send them to us in the chat, in the comments of the video after this goes live afterward, or email them to me and I'll share them with Joseph, and we'll get next week. Does that sound good, Joseph?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So we've got our shot lists, and we're ready to go, right? We go out and we can start setting up to actually video. So what do I do? I got my shot list. Do I just follow it? Is this, at this point, is it a draw by numbers type of thing?
Yeah. So, and I re-edited this. You can go and find it on JoJaqs. There's a WorkbenchCon tab, and you can download this, I believe, as a PDF or maybe a PNG. So all I'm doing is taking my storyboard, my script, my shot or my outline, and putting in the shots that I need to go and get. So I know that, it's more or less like an assembly, and you do not have to do them in order unless that's what your project entails. It could be, getting B-roll, it could be whatever. So when you are done with your pre-production, number one, you're never really done because you're going to make adjustments as you go. But as soon as you feel confident in going out and you're ready to hit record. As long as you feel confident in your planning, then it's time to do it. And it is amazing how it becomes an assembly list. Here's the beautiful thing about it. And we might go ahead and jump into production techniques tonight and save, post for next week. Stop the camera. Do not put a GoPro up there on time lapse unless you have a 5-bay RAID array with 30 terabytes of stuff. You go in, you hit record, you put an audio slate on the record, scene 3A, whatever the tag is, take 3, and you do your take. And as soon as you're done, stop it. If the clip is only going to be 15 seconds in the final product, then only record 20 seconds. You know, you got a little bit of heads and a little bit of tails to cut out, but don't just let the camera roll, because if you record for 3 minutes and you're only using 10 seconds, well, 3 minutes of 4K footage is 4 gigabytes, 5 gig at the least if you're at 50 meg. And yes, there are processes I'll talk about later on how to just get that 10 seconds and trash the rest. But most likely, you're going to do a footage dump at the end of the day. You might not even use that clip, but you have 3 minutes, 4 gig of a hard drive being taken up when you only needed 10 seconds, when it just takes you to have a remote beside you, hit it, stop record, and then write down on your shot list, write down what the file name is. And then when you go into post-production, it's literally an assembly. There's a file name there, or maybe a timestamp of when you recorded it. So you don't even have to search for clips. Let's say you did 3 takes of it. Well, on your shot list, you mark off takes 1 and 2. You don't even have to look at those takes, because you know take 3 is the gold one. And boom, you've saved your 6 times footage length time in post-production. Only edit the shot that you need. It's on your shot list, and you marked it on your shot list that take 3 was the good take.
Excellent. And one of the things I wanted to make sure we had time tonight was I was talking to you, and you were talking about the lessons you could learn by mimicking or reproducing someone else's video. What can you expound on that again? I'm trying to remember the words you used.
So there's nothing new under the sun. You cannot do anything that has not been done before. You can mix things that other people have done before into a new product, but every clip you see on each other's channel is they've seen it somewhere else. And if they didn't see it at another woodworker channel, they've seen it elsewhere. So don't try and reinvent the wheel. Find people that you enjoy. If you like Jason stuff from Bourbon Moth, then mimic him completely and do that as your practice. If you like Jimmy's time-lapse videos, then mimic him exactly and learn the skill that it takes to make those videos. In the 6th part of the JoJaqs launch, it'll be sometime next year, I'm going to launch my Tinker It Maker channel, and I'm going to shoot videos like other people's stuff. Like when Jackman was doing, some of his palette stuff, and he was in there in 3 scenes. I'm going to do that exact same video with my project. And on Tinker It, it's a standalone video. Here on JoJaqs, I'm going to do the behind the scenes. So your best way to do something epic is find someone else who did something epic and do everything you can to mimic that video. And you will learn through that time, like, okay, how do I time lapse? All right, well, here's, Google, how do I time lapse in my shop? And you'll see, maybe it's a GoPro, maybe your big camera will do it. But the point is, mimic channels that you like and what you want to look like, and even do it as practice videos. So let's say you've got a box that needs to go out to a client, and you really need to get that client's box out. Well, you can record it as a test to hone in on your camera shooting skills and your editing skills and those sort of things, where maybe it's a throwaway because you missed pieces of it, but I bet you can turn it into an Instagram reel for 10 seconds of having that beautiful shot. So shoot everything you can and mimic people you like.
Yeah, I've seen some channels on the tech side try to do things like, can I recreate this thumbnail?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the same kind of principle is you have to learn the skills to be able to recreate something that's already out there and successful.
Yeah.
And so many so many, and I'm guilty, look at it sometimes and they're just like, well, that's just a photo. No, there's a lot more that went into it that made it so intriguing, and learning those skills just by replicating it. That's why if you go to art school, you have to do so many faux paintings, right?
Oh yeah.
Is you have to recreate what the masters did so that you build those skill sets.
We had that in film school. In film school, we had a class called Films That Are Movies That Matter, Films That Matter, something. And we started with Buster Keaton and went up through, all sorts of different things. And let me touch really quick on that. I'm going to give you all an amazing experiment to do to hone your skills. And I'm going to try to remember all these steps. I haven't done this in years. First is just the cut video. So shoot. And RT, you're gonna have to remind me of some of this we talked about. So your first thing is mimic somebody's video, just cut it up, shoot, learn composition, and then give that first video of you assembling something or doing what you want to do on your channel. Give that to, don't give it to your mom, because everything you do, she's going to love, but give it to somebody who will critique it. Whether they tell you what's right or wrong, they can tell you what doesn't feel right. Then shoot a video and put it to music. No voiceover, no words. So in your shop, you might have a flammable paint container thing, or so you might have video recorded of the flammable, and then you'll have another clip of somebody with singed hair, and then another clip of that person with singed hair covered in paint and a cigarette hanging out of their mouth. And without words, you've shown a story of don't paint with a cigarette in your mouth. But it's an exercise that if you can't use words, either from a voiceover, narration, etc., tell a story without words, and then tell a story without words using music. Because every story in your outline, wherever, every story has character introduction, rising action, a climax, and a resolution. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown. Jill sued and got a pump installed. Here's the box we're going to make today. Here's all the wood and ways of it. Oh my gosh, here is the finished product. Now go make it yourself. So tell a story without words. And if you want some really good ideas on how to tell stories super quick, 5-second films on YouTube, tell a story in 5 seconds. Practice that in your shop to know that here's the character. What is the character? Is it the wood? Is it the tool? Is it the process? Is it your new French cleat wall? Is it what? And then what's the rising action? What's the point of it? And what's the takeaway?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great exercise. Whenever I think about film, I think about antagonists, protagonists, so I think sometimes as we build story in our videos, we need to look for those classic elements. Can I have the ticking time clock? I've got to get this project done by 4 o'clock because I've got to leave. Can we create a villain in this? Yeah. Is it me versus the machine? That's
a good one.
Am I the star, or is my project the star? If I'm doing a tool review video, how can I build drama by showing little mishaps, showing, when the drill is struggling or something, something like that.
Is the villain the screw? Is the villain the wood? Is the villain the thing that the tool is solving? And make a movie about kickback. Like, do that as a practice, and that'll teach you slow motion techniques. That'll teach you sound effects for drama. But make your shop tools into characters. I love that John from Lincoln Street names them all. That's perfect step into turning them into characters.
Yeah, he relates it to a popular.
Exactly.
Popular Star Wars universe there. Ask John about his opinion on Star Trek sometime. He loves Star Trek. So that kind of addressed
Mhm.
Woodified's question. Any advice for incorporating story?
Oh yeah,
Any
absolutely.
other pointers?
Oh yeah, Mark Rober is the king of this. I did his Arduino class, and part of it was content creation. And every time Mark Rober does a video, he creates villains, heroes, and story arcs even before he does it. Think about the glitter bomb stuff, the squirrels, and then he names all the squirrels in it. So if I want to incorporate storytelling into a woodworking video, I've got to establish conflict, characters, and a setting. So if I want to tell the story, it could be if it's going to a client, then who's the client? Why are they willing to pay this money for it? If they just have money, then why do they have the money? Why are they spending it on you? Is there a story behind a gift? Is there a story behind the saw? Like everything in life, you can tell a story if you find something compelling, or even if it's not compelling. So more storytelling in woodworking could be cleanup time. I do this for my family. I do this not for the money, but for the passion. I love the natural grooves of the wood. Be open and honest. When people go to your channel, they can generally get that information about anywhere on anything. Me doing my video stuff and teaching this boot camp, I'm sure you can find 800 channels exactly like mine saying almost verbatim the same stuff. But I connect with you all. Awesome beard. I do the woodworking, etc. But as we go into the later ones, I'm going to incorporate my background and tell you the history of 8 years at Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, and CNN, and building a maker space at Turner. And you guys are going to hear more of my story coming out because I've got a lot of really fun stories to tell, just like you all have amazing stories to tell with every single project. Look up Eric Gorgeous, A Craftsman Legacy. That is an amazing way to tell a story while talking about makers.
Yeah, I love whenever there's story built in. We can be very clinical sometimes whenever we are doing how-to projects
Mm-hmm.
or reviews, and mixing in things that are personal or teasing a struggle. The whole start of the video where, hey, I made this.
Yep.
Come watch me see how I made it. That's okay, but it's better to say, I had no idea how tough this was going to be to make.
That's it right there is in the intro. And let me talk about the intro real quick. And in my new video, you're going to see that I've dropped my opening graphic because of the hockey stick in your views. Nobody cares who you are. Nobody cares why you're doing this. All it is whiff them. So get to the point as quick as humanly possible. Tell them why they care. If you want to do storytelling, build that conflict of this table saw named Susie has just destroyed everything, and then everything I've ever made, and then put some black and white sepia tone on it and some old western like and then it's a villain. There's that would be so much fun, is to turn the tools in the shop into villains. And hold on, let me write that down.
Yeah. So while you do that, don't forget, folks, for next week, we're going to talk post-production. Get your questions into us so that we can be prepared and make sure that we address what you want to hear about. And another thing that I want to ask you is, whenever you see us both on the screen, do we look like we should be at least cousins, if not
If I didn't
closer
straighten,
relatives?
if I didn't hair dry and straighten my beard, it actually curls the same way that yours does. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think this is great. So we talked about storytelling. We talked about that we can get the templates at JoJaqs.com for
Yep.
storyboarding, and we can learn through experience this process. And you talked to me before, especially if you're just starting out, take those first 10 videos and just make them for yourself to learn the process. But for 10 videos, you're probably going to have to come up with more than 20 ideas and then narrow it down.
Yeah. So my push to people like the gentleman I met yesterday is 24 videos to start. That you need to have 24 ideas before you hit record, because if you have 24 ideas, maybe at best half of them are going to be good. And if you can get one a month done, then you've got 1 year of videos. Now, understand your first year on YouTube is generally your throwaway year. You're figuring out, what works, what doesn't work, who's your avatar, what does your avatar care about, what do you care about, what do you know, what do you not know, what do you need to buy, what do you already have, etc. So in your first year, your videos are going to just sit. The lighting video that I put up 2 months ago, I think before today, had 6 views on it. Like what you saw at the beginning of this. It is disheartening. That's why I shut down my channels years ago, because I'd spend 80 hours working on a project and it would have maybe 30 views after a couple of years. And then my clients' videos that I made would be something dumb and it'd have 100,000 views. So your first ones, it's okay to suck. Please do this as an experiment. Oh my gosh. And I've told Jackman that I talk about this in class. Go to your favorite channels, sort by oldest, and look at their oldest videos. And these two, don't mind me saying it, look at Izzy's oldest stuff and Paul Jackman from Jackman Works. And that will give you the confidence to go and make content, because you don't have to be a professional to get going. It is okay to learn as you go. I learn as I go. If you look at the video I'm uploading later this week to the pre-production one, as just 2 videos ago, there's going to be a lot of differences because I see what I need to change as I go. But you need to have 24 ideas. Whenever I was sitting in that second day at WorkbenchCon, before I would go and make this channel a thing, and I promise I'll tell you guys the story behind how this came about when I have those people on my stuff later. I'm excited about it. I'm not name dropping anything just yet, but when I was sitting there, I came up, I think it was a total of 53 videos I came up with in 2.5 hours of actual things that I need to make. I'm on video 4 out of 53 at this point. So if you can't come up with 24 ideas for content, a build video, sourcing stuff out, techniques, your tool wall, your shop tour video, your background, your favorite projects. If you can't come up with 24 videos in 2 hours, don't start your channel. Wait until you can come up with 30 videos in a day, because if you run out of ideas this early, it's going to be hard sailing a year down the road when you've shot everything and don't know what to shoot next. I'm just sad I can't get everything done as quick as I want to. And dang day job keeps getting in the way.
Yeah. You have enlightened us tonight. I do want you to tell those who are viewing, and like Dusty Trails said, he never knew the true story of Jack and Jill until you told it. And others were commenting about your remarks about some wood being cheap. There's no cheap wood right now. I get that, but I do want everyone viewing to understand where you got the name JoJaqs. It's not a random. You had a purpose. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I've had names all the way back. Tinker It is my consulting company where I build maker spaces and stuff like I do, or I used to. I quit doing it, but design work for architects and that. And it's Tinker Indian Trail is where I'm at in North Carolina. But JoJaqs is named after my daughter because I'm Joseph and my daughter is Jacqueline. It's an alliteration because there's two J's in it. It has a hard consonant at the end, the k, because people love T's, P's, V's, K's at the end of it. It was 6 letters. It was short. Nobody had it. And so JoJaqs, I'm Joseph, and my daughter's Jacqueline. And what's awesome is I've had JoJaqs since she was a few months old, maybe 4 months old. And if you go on the Instagram, you'll see that on her 8th birthday a couple of years ago, she wanted to learn to weld. And so she did that on her 8th birthday, and she comes out and hangs with me in the shop. She is my twin. It's crazy. I mean, obviously not the beard, but we've done the face swap, and it's crazy how much we look alike. She's going to be an architect maybe one day, but she is a maker, and it's ridiculous how kids all want to be YouTube stars. And she just has no idea what it is I do and just kind of rolls her eyes. I love seeing, oh my gosh, the drummer from Nirvana, from Foo Fighters. What's the name? What is his name? The lead singer on Foo Fighters. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Oh, but either way, he had an interview, and it's funny if you see how much his kids diss him. It's hilarious because you're nothing. Like she's my girl. But I digress. I'm going down the road here. My daughter's Jacqueline, and I just adore her.
Yeah, there you go.
Dave Grohl. Thank you very much. Somebody give Hillbilly Chic. I'll find something cool to give you. Oh, yeah, got some swag. We'll do that next time. I've got lots of giveaway items that if people are willing to pay shipping, I'll get them out to you. There's literally 12 microphones sitting here beside me that I tested out this week. And yeah, sorry.
Okay. So we'll do a giveaway next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do a handful.
Okay.
What,
Fantastic.
there was another piece of that you wanted to add, or there was something else. I don't think I answered both your questions, but I'll let you go ahead.
No, I was, well, my main thing was I want everybody to know about the name for your channel because it's original. For me, it was easy to remember, especially after you explained where you got the name from. I love it that you included a child's name in that.
She's awesome.
So I appreciate this. Next week, we will talk about post-production. Please send us, either put it in the comments, send it to me, marriedmanwoodworking@gmail.com, or get it to me through Instagram message or something. Any questions you have. We have one question, which I think is great already, about hiring a new editor, and give me some tips. Provide her with A-roll, voiceover, and B-roll. And I think that would, a big part of that will be how you organize your files and document the process.
Oh yeah,
from the beginning. So,
you'll be when you have an editor, the editor has creative control, and the producer and editor, we actually call them predators. That is a term. They are the most important people in it beyond the camera person. And we'll talk about it later, but shoot with the edit in mind. If you Google that phrase, shoot with the edit in mind, you will be shooting for your editor. And when you're working with your editor, that is hugely important to have a shot list that you do properly, and slate things properly, communicate over the microphone at the very beginning and the tail end of your record. When you hit record and when you hit stop, right at those times, talk to yourself. Oh my gosh, even if you're by yourself, talk to yourself at the beginning and end of a clip, because you can say, take 3 was better than this one, or I'm only recording this for whatever. It saves you from having to write it down. But whether you are your own editor, shoot with the edit in mind.
Fantastic. You can find him at JoJaqs.com and JoJaqs on YouTube. Any last thoughts, Joseph?
Yeah, we'll I've talked to Steve already about turning some of his concepts. I have bought, I don't know how many copies of this book for people, and they are little short bits. If you go onto the JoJaqs where you get the storyboard, there's an Amazon affiliate link to get this little $10 book. This is, out of all the books that I've collected over the years, this is the best one to break down production practicum in the most simple way for everybody. So when we come back, even if we can't do the post-production stuff and I go into production practicum, I steal so many ideas from this book.
That is awesome. You are awesome, my friend.
Thank you so much.
As for me, I hear my wife calling. I got to go.
And I think it's easier for people to look at my story, for example, or anybody like in a similar story, and think that that was an easy decision. And I can't state how much that was a very hard decision for both my wife and I.
You know, I still do some from time to time now.
Okay. And what led you from that into video creation on YouTube?
Boredom.
What's the next step? What is the next thing? What's going to get you to that next place?
It wasn't like YouTube's good and, you know, this and that. Like, I was still pretty new to YouTube and didn't know that was sustainable long term. And so it was a gamble. And I'd worked for a long time to get in the position I was at. And it was a very, very hard decision to basically give that up for, you know, potentially the rest of my life.
With me being a business-minded individual and trying to make sure that I'm providing for my family, but also always growing.
It's really kind of sad because I didn't get involved even when he was doing the noodle boards. He pretty much did all that. I did everything in the house so that he could stay in the shop a lot.
I am a little conflicted, I think. It initially started off with just sharing like my sewing machines and sewing tips and stuff like that. And then it kind of morphed into sharing the Mastering Mayhem merch items that I was making. And then along the way, I kind of shared some DeWalt tool and obsessions that I've had.
Hats off to Ira. I mean, I can't imagine doing it with small kids. That's a lot of work.
Well, this is a little chaotic, so.
My part really didn't start until Live Edge started. When we started Live Edge, I don't know, I felt different about everything. It felt real to me. I think everything started feeling real to him, you know, after the first few months because he was in the shop. It didn't really feel real to me until Live Edge started. And now I see this as my future too. I don't think I'll be a teacher much longer.
Because I wasn't quite niched enough, but I think because my channel name is I Don't Even Work Here, I think I'm just going to roll with.
I'm going to put out some shorts for staging. Staging is simply where you make the piece of furniture or the item, whatever it is, if it's, you know, wall decor, whatever it is that you're making. It's just where you simply make it look like it belongs in a home.
I never even considered the second channel. I just think that all of my content needs to go where I am.
I'll always be that individual that loves YouTube, that always wants to do extremely detailed videos on how to build.
I was living in Charleston. This was back in, we're talking 2013, March 19th, 2013 was when I posted my very first video.
So think about what the kid actually wants. Try to come up with projects that are quick wins. Sometimes it's not even really hammering something or sawing something. Sometimes it's just simply gluing a couple things together and then painting it. Like, think like a kid.
I had talked to a lot of people in the area trying to find a woodworkers group, people that were building stuff. Didn't even have to be woodworking, there just wasn't much of it. So a friend of mine suggested making videos on YouTube to reach out to other, meet other woodworkers, reach out to other people who were building things. And so I started checking it out, and that was really cool. I saw, back then it was Steve Ramsey, Mark Spagnolo, Lainey Shaughnessy, and of course Matt's Basement Workshop, and they were kind of those are really the four guys. I call them the four fathers. They're the four guys that really started the woodworking DIY thing on YouTube. Those were the guys that started it back. And then there was Matthias Wandel and John Heitz came along, and about the same time, Jimmy DeResta had started his thing. Bob Claggett and I started about the same time. We're roughly within a year span there. We all started right around the same time, and it was just fun and exciting. I put a video up. It was the worst video that's ever been posted to YouTube. If you're hard on your videos, go check out my very first video ever. You won't feel so bad, I promise. I took like another 2 months and I put up another video, and it happened again. People were, commenting and talking, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I had done a lot of fishing because I had a lot of free time. So I've been fishing and watching YouTube videos. Saw that there was this gap in the market in the industrial side of making or furniture or other things. You tend to see a lot of things that you don't see in the DIY side.
We do take sponsors, especially as a lot of the smaller channel, and there's two ways that they talk about sponsorship. Sponsorship is someone paying you to do something, and the other one is getting free tools and stuff.
I've had them different times throughout the course of 14 years for different projects and different things that I'm working on. Right now, the team members behind the scenes all have to do with my online courses, but everything else, as far as what I do for my channel, it's just all me.
Doing the research is not necessarily going to be the fun part, right? And we had Mr. King on here a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about the research he did before he released a single YouTube short. Well, the research he did led him to putting together a video less than a minute, but there was many, many hours of research before that, but it led to 5 million views. So research can be very important. This is counterintuitive to a lot of the suggestion out there on YouTube where everybody says, just hit record. Just go out in the garage and hit record. And your viewpoint seems to be different than that. What do you say to those people that say, just hit record?
I'm glad you brought it up, RT. There's a lot of, I call them talking points that have manifested themselves for whatever reason in the how to grow space. The just hit record is probably one of the ones that drives me the most insane. You can go out and just hit record, but again, set your expectations for what you think the output and the end result is going to be. You get out of things what you put into them, and you may get lucky and you might catch a unicorn, but I'm going to bet 9 times out of 10, if you just go out and you hit record, you don't do any research, you don't have a plan, you don't have a rough script, you don't have a target audience, you don't have value that you're looking to provide. Again, I just think you're setting yourself up for unneeded frustration when a little prep and work up front can pay extreme dividends in the end. And you don't get a do-over when you post the video. Once it goes out into the interwebs, it's done. And you can't go back and redo the same topic right away because then you look like a goof.
I'm inspired by this guy. It's a little not fair because he does have a bigger, larger channel, but he has a smaller woodworking channel that's done pretty well this past year as well as in 2020. And his name is Robert Dunn.
Authenticity is something that I strive for all the time. I always try to just be myself, but everybody always says that. They always say, well, when you're on camera, just be yourself. But as soon as the camera goes on, you're never really yourself because you're always aware of the image that you're projecting, and then you're going to refine that further when you're editing it. At best, I think most of us are only, at best, maybe 80 to 90% ourselves. There's always that part that's carefully curated.
And he's hilarious. I think he is one of the best people in front of a camera in our space. His bigger channel is a car channel. I'm not going to kind of focus on that. But under Dunn, he has made a handful of videos this past year. Not nearly as many as he made in 2020, but he still racked in quite a few views. Especially, he had some videos over 100,000, some over 500,000. And what I really want to emphasize with Robert Dunn, even if you watch his Aging Wheels channel or Underdone, his woodworking channel, is his confidence, relaxation, and charisma. And it might,
one thing I'm good at probably more than anything else is business and understanding the way businesses work and how to run a business. And I always come at from very much the money ball approach. I don't want to hit home runs. I just want to get on base and get on base and get on base.
And as far as working to become more natural on camera, that's just time. You just keep doing it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get at it. And I do think it's important to, as much as I'm not really a fan of saying having the avatar behind the camera, I do think it helps to imagine that you're actually talking to somebody who will be watching the video. Sometimes it's easy to forget that you see numbers of people watching, but you forget that these are actual people watching your video on their phone or on their TV or wherever. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.